In a few weeks, the second season of the Squid Game will be released. That famous series that revolutionized the world when it was released in the middle of the global pandemic. Everyone at home with a lot of free time turned it into the viral series of the moment, and its success was immediate. So much so that they put the scriptwriters to work and recorded a second season. Something that was not in their plans, but money talks, and the public demanded a more closed ending for this curious story. Even LeBron James, a fan of the series, declared, "I didn't like the ending. What are you doing?"
Yeah, I didn't like the ending. I know they started off with a season 2, but like, get on the fucking flight. What's in the dark, bro? Like, what are you doing? You won the game. And you went twice.
That's why today we're going over the whole story behind the Squid Game, and how the creator went from being in debt to becoming a millionaire and a world celebrity. But we'll see that he's not as millionaire as one would think. In addition to many curiosities about the filming and the possible alternative ending that had been written, the series was written and directed by Hwang Dong-hyeok, a South Korean writer and screenwriter who began his career in the 2000s, directing short films. Until 2007, he made the leap and directed his first film, My Father. In 2008, he had unsuccessfully tried to get investment for the script of a different film he had written. He, his mother, and his grandmother had to take out loans to stay afloat and sustain themselves amid the debt crisis within South Korea. He spent his free time at a comic book cafe, reading Japanese survival manga, such as Battle Royale, Liar Game, and Gambling Apocalypse, Kaiji. Hwang compared the situation of the characters in these works to his own current situation, and considered the idea of being able to join a survival game to earn money and get out of debt, which led him to write a film script around that concept throughout 2009. At the time, Hwang feared that the story was too difficult to understand and bizarre. He attempted to sell the project to several Korean production groups and actors, but was told that it was too grotesque and unrealistic. Thus, he shelved this script without anyone accepting it, and over the next 10 years, he successfully completed 3 other films: Silence, a crime drama film;
몸에 장애가 있으면 이게 마음의 장애로 이어지거든요.
Miss Granny, a comedy drama romance plot, very different from his previous works. And the historical drama film The Fortress.
성밖에 온통 적들이 만산성으로 옥체를 피고 있사옵니다.
In the 2010 S, Netflix experienced huge growth in audiences outside of North America and began investing in productions in other regions, including Korea. In 2018, Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos stated that they were looking for more foreign production successes. The exciting thing for me would be for the next Stranger Things to come from outside the United States. Right now, historically, nothing of that scale has come from anywhere other than Hollywood. In 2018, Netflix opened a division in Asia, and Hwang presented the curious story that immediately caught attention. In 2019, the production and recording of the script under the series format was announced, although it was initially intended as a film, so it was decided to use children's games with simple rules that were easy to explain in contrast to other survival-type films that use games with complex rules. Thus, 9 episodes were recorded under his own direction, since he had experience and good references from his already produced films. The Squid Game. It is Netflix's most-watched series, becoming the most-watched show in 94 countries and attracting over 142 million member households and accumulating 2 billion hours of viewing during its first 4 weeks since launch, surpassing Bridgerton for the title of most-watched show. The budget allocated was $21 million, and it is estimated that Netflix earned more than $900 million thanks to its broadcast. But then, did its creator actually see any changes in his bank account? Hwang Dong-hyeok declared, "I'm not that rich. It's not like Netflix paid me extra. I make enough to put food on the table." And it's not that Netflix didn't pay him. It did so according to the original contract, without bonuses and without extras. One in which the filmmaker waives intellectual property rights and royalties. Precisely 2 items, especially the latter, that were among the major points of contention in the US industry's screenwriter strike that ended in September 2023. But no one could have foreseen that it would be a success of this magnitude. Perhaps Hwang should have negotiated an acting-related clause, especially since creating, writing, and directing the series caused him so much stress that he lost 6 teeth in the process. The Netflix CEO tried to calm the matter down by declaring that, "It's a competitive market and we pay salaries well above the market. We provide sufficient support. And in the case of a series success, we will make sure that the creators are compensated in a proper way in the next season." So what is Squid Game in Korea? Hwang based the narrative on Korean games from his childhood to show the irony of a children's game where competition was not important and becomes an extreme competition with people's lives at stake. Squid Game was a popular Korean children's game from the 1970s and 1980s, and it got its name from its similarity once you draw the shape of the area on the ground to that of a squid, using quite a bit of imagination, it must be said. Hwang recalled Squid Game as the most physically aggressive children's game I played in the alleys of the neighborhood when I was a child, which is why it was also the one I liked the most. And that is why it is the most symbolic game that reflects today's competitive society, so I chose it as the title of the season. But how do you actually play Squid Game? The bases of each team are called houses. The top circle is the offensive team's home, the bottom rectangle is the defensive team's home, and the middle triangle is the neutral field between them. The objective for the offensive team is to leave their home and move out of the figure to the bottom of the defensive house, shown open in the diagram above. Then pass through the figure back to the offensive house. The attacking players are required to move only by hopping on one foot until they up, either by reaching Area 2 after passing through Area 3, or by jumping over the thin part of the figure between the 2 areas 4. Once up, they may use both feet. The defensive team tries to eliminate the offensive team by pushing them across a line in the figure that they are not allowed to cross. Generally, this means pushing players who have entered the figure out of it, or pushing players who try to jump over the figure 4 into the triangle. The defensive team members who leave the figure are also eliminated, so it is possible for the attackers to win the game by pushing all the defenders out of the figure. The city scenes were shot in Daejeon, while the island scenes were shot in Seonggapdo, located in Ongjin. The green tracksuits worn by the players were inspired by 1970s sportswear known as training bok. The maze-like hallways and stairs were inspired by M.C. Escher's 4-dimensional staircase drawings, including relativity. The complex network of tunnels between the arena, dormitory, and administrative office was inspired by ant colonies. The dinner scene that took place in the 8th episode was inspired by Judy Chicago's art installation, The Dinner Party. The walls of many of the areas where the games took place were painted with skies, inspired by René Magritte's Empire of Light series. The team spent the majority of their time crafting the stage for the marbles game, creating a mix of realism and fakery to reflect the life or death nature of the games themselves. Che stated that this stage was designed as a combination of small theatrical sets, each stage depicting parts of player 001's memories. Most of the sets were a combination of practical sets and chroma key backdrops. For example, in the glass stepping stone scenes, the set, designed as a circus tent for the actors performing for the VIPs, was only 1.5 meters off the ground, and chroma key screens were used to simulate the height in post-production. On set, it was far enough off the ground to make the actors nervous, which added to the scene. The tug-of-war stage was situated more than 10 meters off the ground, which created further anxiety for some of the actors who were afraid of heights. The robot doll in the first episode, Red Light, Green Light, was inspired by Young-hee, a character who appeared on the covers of the Korean textbooks Chul-soo and Young-hee in the 1970s and 1980s. And what the doll actually sings in Korean is, "The mugunghwa flower has bloomed," referring to the hibiscus syriacus, the national flower of South Korea. Dalgona is a Korean cookie made from melted sugar and baking soda. It was a popular snack in the 1970s and 1980s. In South Korea, it is very popular among children, since this sweet is molded into any shape, like stars, hearts, umbrellas, and then broken, achieving the desired shape. If this is achieved, most sellers will give you another Dalgona or toy as a reward. In the setting of the Dalgona game that used giant pieces of playground equipment, it was meant to evoke the childhood memories of the players, and was a common place where Korean children would have played Dalgona with friends. Throughout the season, the trio of circle, triangle, and square shapes frequently appear on the cards given to recruiting players, on the guards' masks, and within the season title. These are shapes associated with the playing field of the children's game of Squid. They are also used to represent the hierarchy of guards within the compound. Following the comparison to an ant colony, guards with circles are considered the workers, triangles the soldiers, and squares the managers. Additionally, in the Korean alphabet, Hangul, the circle represents the romanized letter O, the triangle represents part of the letter J, and the square represents the letter M. Together, OJM are the romanized initials of Ojingaeogaim, the Korean translation of the Squid Game. The soundtrack for the series was composed by Jung Jae-il, the same composer in charge of the task in Parasite, a successful film from 2017. The series used a real number, like the one that players have to call to confirm their participation. Its owner received thousands of calls a day, causing him serious harm since it was his work phone. Finally, Netflix decided to remove the scenes from the series in which the number in question appears. Actors Gong Yoo and Lee Byung-hun had worked with Hwang during his previous films, Silenced and The Fortress, respectively. Ho Yeon-jung received a request to send a video to audition for the season while finishing a photo shoot in Mexico and preparing for New York Fashion Week. Although this was her first audition as an actress, and her expectations were low. There were accusations of plagiarism, pointing out the similarities with the film As the Gods Will, a plot in a school with death games, but with a more comic tone. Hwang Dong-hyeok defended himself by saying that the script for the series had been written several years before the film's release in 2014. The creator of Squid Game said he has only watched 2 series to the end, Breaking Bad and Mindhunter. The excessive success and the curious theme led to recreating many of its games for purely recreational purposes, both in cities, television programs, YouTubers, streamers, video games, and everything that could be set in that style. The soundtrack became representative of that tension and fear of losing one's life. The very particular costume became a fashion. There was even an increase in sales of the famous Dalgona cookies. We only have to wait for the outcome of the story on December 26th, and a 3rd season is already planned for 2025. This has been the history and curiosities of the Squid Game. If you are interested in more videos of this style about your favorite series, movie reviews, or filmographies of actors and directors, I invite you to give the video a like and give me your subscription to support this type of content. Until the next video,